You're listening to the Multifamily Journey Podcast. In this show, you'll hear industry experts share tips of success and failure from their real estate investing journeys. You'll get a transparent look behind the curtain while you learn to fulfill the lifestyle you want to live and achieve your wealth goals. Get ready for the journey to financial freedom through investing in multifamily real estate. Here's your host, Blake Dailey.
Hey guys, welcome to another great episode of the Multifamily Journey Podcast. Today's guest is David Pere, and it was a fun show, and I think you guys are really going to like it. So David Pere is an active duty Marine, and he's been in the Marine Corps since 2008. Since then, he's moved around to a couple different markets, buying long distance along the way, and even had a combat tour in Afghanistan, which, as you'll hear during the show, was kind of the start to his whole brand, which is a cool story. So David got started in real estate investing in 2015. Got started by house hacking in a duplex, and from there grew into buying a 10 unit in Missouri and has continued to add to his portfolio since then. Through all of this came From Military to Millionaire. David's very cool brand that has the goal of teaching service members and veterans and really the blue class population how to build wealth through real estate investing, entrepreneurship, and personal finance. Now he does YouTube videos, he has his own podcast, and he runs the mastermind that I'm in, which is great. He does a lot to give value to others, so I'm stoked he came on the show today and got to deliver that value to you guys. This is a good show where we talk about networking and how to connect with others. So much good comes out of networking and meeting new people. So you guys will get a ton of value out of that. We also talk about how to brand yourself and give out valuable content to help others while also growing yourself. And of course, we talk real estate. David has done a lot of that and is really the core of his brand. So strap in because this is going to be a good episode. But before we get into that, I wanted to let you know about the website at multifamilyjourney.com/podcast, where you can get on and submit questions to be asked on the podcast. I created a form where it captures your questions, and then I can pull from those so you get your questions answered. I really wanted to find a way to provide value to you guys, and I thought by answering your direct questions, that would be a big help. So you can type those in at multifamilyjourney.podcast. I'll see them. I'll actually read them and then ask them to the guests. And while you're there, check out the blogs and stuff and where I go into more depth on one topic. And I also post about all of my own deals on there so you can read about those. And lastly, if you guys like the show, please leave a rating and review. That's a big help to get the podcast out there. And so more people can get access to the good information that comes out of these conversations with the guests. I try to get super solid guests like David today so you guys can grow and shorten the learning curve and grow and scale faster. So yeah, I think that's it. Now let's get into the show. All right, David, welcome to the podcast, man. Super excited you could come on.
Thanks, brother. I am actually, this is a lot of fun. I always prefer to do podcasts with a friend as opposed to just some random person from Instagram. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but yeah, this is exciting.
Yeah, so tonight, guys, we got a treat. We got the real military millionaire on here, the original, the OG. So there it is. He's showing his shirt. And I got on another one of our guys' shirt.
Hey, Stu shirt.
Mastermind group. I couldn't find my military to millionaire shirt, unfortunately. So I was like, you know what?
Ironically, I got a text from Alex today that he lost his. So apparently they're so good, people are stealing them. That's the only thing I can think of.
That's good. I got to get my wife wearing it now, and she'll start repping it to all her doctor clan. But yeah, Dave, why don't you give people a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I am, well, at least for a little while longer, active duty Marine. About a year from now, I'm planning to transition into the reserves, but been a Marine now for 12 years, and I logistics guy by trade. In 2015, I was a recruiter, and I got into real estate investing because someone handed me a book, the Purple Rich Dad Poor Dad book that everybody,
the Purple Bible,
claims, that everybody claims is the reason they succeed. And it really does. It just kind of it takes a really boring, dry subject and makes it at least entertaining that someone like me can finish the book. And then you're like, oh, wow, that was actually okay. That's cool. Mm-hmm. And then it just snowballs from there. Been investing now for 5 years, and I'm going to be able to go reserves next year and not have to, hopefully by the time that I am in the reserves, I will be completely unemployable, but I am definitely at a point right now where I think I'll be able to walk away from the military without ever having to work again, except for what I want to work on, which is cool.
And that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. That's what basically you put on your website, right? Is so that you reach financial freedom so that you can choose to not have to work again, right? It's like the whole idea behind the platform you've built, and now you're about to live it out. So it's great to see that.
It's exciting. Nerve-wracking, very nerve-wracking, but exciting.
Yeah, it's a whole new thing. So I guess this kind of just side question is, what made you want to go reserves as opposed to doing like a skills bridge program, which for those out there listening that don't know, skills bridge is a program that you can do in the military where it's like a 6-month internship that you still get paid as your military rank, but go out and incorporate you into the civilian workforce. So what was your thought process there?
Interestingly enough, I actually plan on doing skill bridge. I just don't plan on doing it somewhere where I'm going to keep the job. So I plan on trying to do skill bridge either with, had a few offers from successful brokers. I don't know that I really want to be a real estate agent full time, but it's a good opportunity to learn that side. There's an opportunity or two with one with a real estate company that I'm a fan of, and another with one or two somewhat big, I guess you could say thought leaders, but I would just say people like faces in the real estate world that I'm kind of working through. So try to figure out which opportunity I want to take there. And then there's always the chance that I may just go intern somewhere back where I'm going to get out. And anyway, so yeah, I'm planning to do the 6-month internship as long as my command will sign off on it. But the reason for the reserves, as opposed to just completely exiting the military, is that I'm going to be, by the time my terminal ends, I'll be at 13 years and 2 months. 6.5 years is really, it would be dumb, I think, for me to just completely throw away the pension. Plus, I enjoy the military. So my hope is that the staying reserves will allow me the opportunity to get a pension and actually retire and whatnot. But B, it will hopefully allow me to do the fun stuff in the Marine Corps that I really enjoy doing without having to be tied to 24/7, the whim of somebody else. So it kind of allowed me to do a little bit of both.
Yeah, nice. It gives you options and gets you in a little bit different career where you can not have to put your phone in the box for 12 hours and be locked away.
Hey, as much as I love trying to run a business with no cell phone during the day and not even access to Gmail, it will be nice to have both of those things.
Yeah, which is hard. I mean, you can almost completely run your business from an iPhone these days. I mean, I've basically been doing it because I work full time, and it's almost run it from the iPhone. So
Android.
You got an Android? Oh my gosh, man!
I'm a peasant.
That's what you were saying. Are you okay? Did you break your iPhone? Like, what's wrong?
Oh man, long story short, terrible customer service experience with Apple, and I've never been done wrong by my Android. So
okay, fair
maybe
enough.
I just like to be able to stick it to people.
That's loyalty.
Like, you know what?
Loyalty right there. That's brand recognition and brand loyalty. I like it, man. So David, a little bit about our background. We met last year, which is actually like a year ago this month at Flip Hacking Live, right? Bill Allen's event. And that was in San Diego, which was my first time in San Diego, and absolutely loved it. Stayed in a really cool hostel there all by myself and met some cool people from like all over the world. So that was a fun experience, and the event was great. But I met you at that event, and you're walking around with your Military to Millionaire shirt, killing it in the networking. And I'm this young guy just figuring it out. I'm like, man, this guy is like really good at networking. I need to figure out. And you were with Stu, I think, in our mastermind. And I was like, man, these guys have it figured out. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of networking and why it's been so powerful to help you grow?
Well, Stu has it figured out. I'm just really good at talking to a lot of people and trying to keep sentences together. So, networking's been, I mean, that's it, right? Like, when Veterans Live was supposed to be in person this year before it went, virtual because everything shut down and went virtual, I gave a presentation on networking and content marketing. And I was originally going to start off by saying, hey, show of hands, who knows who I am? And knowing that like half the room, if not more, was going to put their hand up in the air and be like, okay, show of hands, who's met me in person? And I knew who was attending the event. It was going to be like 10 people who'd actually see me in person and be like, okay, that's why you should all listen to me. Like, that's why networking's awesome. Because, dude, I mean, this platform started while I was on the island in Hawaii, which is a great place. Not a whole lot of opportunities to meet people, and not as many real estate investors because everybody just convinces themselves, oh, I can't invest here.
Yeah, it's too expensive. Why is too expensive?
So rather than investing somewhere in the mainland where they've never lived because they're like jaded, because a lot of Hawaiians are like, oh, screw the mainland. They just are content not doing it, which is fine. But yeah, so networking, I started learning how to network while I was a recruiter. And then it got me out of my shell, my little homeschooled, sheltered, kind of weird. I'm still weird, but that shell. And then, I started building this platform and it was like, holy crap. I've just kind of always made it a point to have a few people at every event that I plan to meet and then talk to as many people as possible and try to weed out people that don't relate quick and build conversations and relationships with everybody I can. And flip hacking was solid. And it's funny, flip hacking's not, it is one of the best real estate events that I've been to, but it's not really designed for like the networking opportunities. It's designed for the content. So the fact that we were still able to make so many good connections there was great. Not to say that there aren't networking connections, like there's totally networking opportunities. It's just some events you go to, like networking is the focus and there's some content. Flip hacking is more the other way around, which is great. But
because you learn a ton of cool stuff, and then those breaks can still go, meet people, and then when
I preferred, so it was very good.
That events like that are so important to whether it's content based or networking based. If you go to one that's super content based, like take the time in the breaks or during the lunch periods, which me, you, and Stu and JD went and got lunch and came back and had really good conversations in that. And through that networking, that's what brought me to the War Room in our mastermind. And through that, so much growth has happened since January in that amount of time. Like that has started me from, just being a residential guy or small multifamily guy to now looking at 100+ unit multifamily deals with a team of 6 people of all-stars. I mean, that's the kind of progression that happens through networking, and you've seen it play out, and it's built your brand as well. So that's great tips. What advice would you give to somebody looking to say, I'm not a good networker? How do they become a better networker?
There's a lot of good advice out there. The first one is as old as it gets, and everyone's gonna be like, oh yeah, sure. Just be your freaking self, right? Like, and when I say that, what I mean is understand who you are. Figure out your identity, right? Like service members especially get wrapped up in this, like, I'm Marine, well, yeah, okay, cool, but who are you, right? Like you have to have an identity outside of the military for multiple reasons, right? Like that makes transition easier, but also because you need to be unique, right? You can't just suppress your personality. So be yourself. If you're quirky and awkward in public, like that's fine. There's other quirky and awkward people in public. They will flock to you, right? So be yourself, be comfortable. Don't try to build a platform around a lie. But the basic steps for networking are, build rapport. So finding some common ground with somebody and matching and mirroring, and just kind of, if they're standing with their arms crossed, stand with your arms crossed, match their body posture, and find something that you guys have in common, and then ask them questions, open questions if you want to keep the conversation flowing, closed questions, which are yes or no questions if you want to confirm what you heard, and just make sure that you keep them talking about themselves, right? Like if you want to be a good networker, don't do what I do and talk a lot. Do the opposite. Shut up and ask great questions.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I always think of it as like turn small talk into big talk. Like, don't let small talk kill a conversation. What you were just saying is be you, be authentic. Like, don't try to, I'm, this great real estate investor. If you're not, like, just be authentic. I'm trying to learn, and people are going to want to help you that way. And then the matching and mirroring was what you're saying is, I learned that like while wholesaling, knocking on doors, talking to a bunch of sellers, is like kind of reflect what they're giving to you. If they're speaking really fast, I want to talk numbers, I want to be like this, then you do that. But if they're, taking their time and there's a lot of other things in the background, then you match that. So you really just play off of, your situation, and you can still be authentic within that. But just little tips. And then, just ask questions, right? Don't let small talk die, make it big talk, and really feed the conversation. That's good stuff. So, I guess making a little bit of transition here into the platform and the brand that you've been able to build, which is From Military to Millionaire. From military to millionaire.com is where all this centers around, the Facebook group and all that, has really grown in the last 2 years, or big time in the last year, because of networking and things like that. So let's go to the beginning of that. What made you want to start the thought leadership platform? I always find this interesting.
Interestingly enough, that was never actually a decision that was made. So it's kind of a weird story. When I was deployed, one thing that I did well, which is surprising to me even to this day because I don't do it well now and I don't know where it came from, but I kept a journal on the deployment. And I journal about goals and stuff now, but I don't sit down and write my thoughts out, right? But for some reason, I thought it'd be a good idea to keep a mission log. So every single mission we did, I documented from start to finish with, PAX counts and VIX counts and this, that, and the other. And then in a separate book, I kept a journal. And so I can actually go back now. I haven't done it recently, but I can correlate, like I can tie the two together and have like, hey, on this day, this crazy thing happened. And oh, hey, here's what I was thinking later that day. And so I had this thought like, man, it'd be cool to write a book that was like, when Average Joe was in Afghanistan, as opposed to like all the books right now that are, they're all SEALs or killed bin Laden or whatever that write all these books, not like average dumb Lance Corporal who's like someone gave him a laser dazzler and tried to see how long he could keep himself awake by
sent him out there with a rifle and said, good luck.
Yeah, like doing all the dumb stuff. And I was like, yeah, this would be a great book. And then I kind of realized like nobody's going to read that because nobody knows who I am. So I had this idea like, okay, well, I don't know anything about writing. Maybe I'll just start writing about stuff and people will pay attention. And I had no idea what to write about. And honestly, I was lucky enough that I was having a conversation with Brandon Turner and I mentioned that thought to him. And he was just like, dude, just document what you're doing with real estate. Like you're doing long distance stuff. You're in the military. It's cool. Okay. And I was like, well, if Brandon thinks this is a good idea, obviously things have worked for him. I'll do it. And that was it. I didn't even come up with a name for the platform. Came up with a bunch of names. I don't remember what they were, but they sucked. And all my friends didn't vote for them. And one of my other friends who's not even in the military told me, why don't you try this? Oh, that's cool. And that was kind of all she wrote. It just, as I started just kind of documenting what I was doing, it started to grow and people started to ask more questions. Someone was like, you should start a YouTube channel. Like, okay. Someone told me to start a podcast. So a lot of this was just kind of like grab the tiger by the tail and see what happens. And just luckily it kind of worked out for a while. So
yeah,
now I'm being more intentional, which is why the first year and a half of that was fun and the Instagram grew, but that was about it. And then this last year, everything's really started to come together and it's actually started to produce some income and stuff. So
yeah, that's awesome. So really it was just all taking the recommendations of people you like and trusted and that had faith in you. And it was just all natural growth. And from that saw, a good opportunity to continue to build and help military members. And I love the mission really of the whole brand is to help service members achieve financial freedom and like you're about to do, not work if you choose not to. So, and through that over the last year since we've met, I've saw your content on Facebook and Instagram, and I feel like I've seen the progression and kind of watched it and kept up with it. And you put out really good content. What tips would you give to somebody that's looking to do the same, whether it's, blogging or maybe they want to start a YouTube channel? What are the most important things to put out content?
Well, the most important thing is consistency. I guess I should throw this disclaimer. You're really going to suck when you begin. And if you don't believe me, if you know who Brandon Turner is with Bigger Pockets, he's going to hate me for this. Go onto Bigger Pockets YouTube channel and you go to the homepage for the channel, you click videos, and in the video section, you can hit view by and go oldest to newest and go back to where the first few Bigger Pockets YouTube videos ever came out and watch Brandon's first video. And if that doesn't convince you that you're not going to be good at this,
and terrible.
Oh my God, it's terrible. You should, it's entertaining. That was honest to God. Like,
I'll have to put it in the show notes.
Do it, man. Do it. So actually, it's funny because Brandon is the one who told me to do that. He was like, dude, go watch my first video. And you go watch my first video. It's in a freaking closet in my base housing. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But it got me started. And then I just made sure I did one video a week and then maybe 2 videos a week and then eventually 3 videos a week and then whatever I'm at now. And then the blog post is, I like writing. It's therapeutic. It's really good way to get your thoughts out on paper. And you can take your blog post and if you have a teleprompter, you can do that, or you can just use it as bullet points, but it forces you to think things out. So I would recommend that you start off with, write out like 1,000 words, right? And that sounds daunting, but just put out like 5 or 6 bullet points on something you want to write about and just start typing, and 1,000 words might take you 2 hours, maybe. It doesn't have to be edited. It doesn't have to be anything great. Slap it out somewhere and read it off in front of a camera if you want to do video, but just stay consistent and you'll get better. Watch some YouTube videos on people that you enjoy who are either in your niche or they are good at YouTube or good at writing, and just watch them and then keep doing it. You'll get better. Consistency.
Yeah, that's really good tips. I find myself, it's hard to be consistent, especially, when you're like me or you, or like probably most of the people listening to this podcast that have full-time jobs and want to get out of this. Like, where do you find the time? And it's really setting it aside. And I found I'll like sit down and write a full blog post. And what I've been doing is like writing about each deal and taking out lessons learned and just trying to be authentic as possible and transparent, because there's a lot of good stuff in there. There's a ton of stuff that's like, why'd you do that? Why did that take 8 weeks longer than it should have? And it's like, well, I wrote about it so you can hopefully avoid the same mistake and just show that progress. And I found like the same thing. It is kind of therapeutic, and it helps you just think through your own thoughts and process. It's almost like journaling, but then putting it out there for other people to read. So it's really just kind of insight into what you're doing. And it also helps you too to think through it. And then when you go to talk about it or try to help somebody through the same process, you can be like, okay, I've been through this. I've thought through it too. Not only did I go through it, I've taken out my own internal learning lessons, and here they are packaged and wrapped for you now. It makes it a lot more digestible. So Be consistent and just do it. Get over your fear.
And you hit something powerful there on the content side. The idea, if you want to learn about something, like write a blog post about it. You don't have to post it if you don't want to, but I do that all the time. Like, for example, I wanted to learn more about self-directed IRAs. And so I basically pulled up like 10 different articles and all kinds of different research stuff. And I wrote myself a very detailed blog post, like 2,000 or 3,000 words about it. And by the time I was done, not only had I answered all of my questions, I felt like I had given myself the ability to teach about it, because I'd done a ton, like 4 or 5 hours worth of research. So I think that's a good way to produce content too, right? Because if you're wanting to learn about it, someone else is probably wanting to learn about it. But another way too is just pay attention to your audience. As you grow, you'll get a bunch of the same questions. And if you get 3 people in the same week who ask you like, hey, do you think I should refinance my house? Well, you should probably make a video about refinancing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that from you on one of our last Zoom calls where you talked about, I got that same question. So I just put a video about it or wrote a blog post about it. And then every time they asked me that question after that, I just pointed them that way. And I actually took your advice, Good. So I kept getting asked like, why is right now a good time to invest in multifamily? Like, isn't the market really bad? I was like, no, actually, if you break it down, you look at interest rates, you look at the ease of capital right now, because people have pulled out of the stock market and liquidated and other things. And there's a couple of different reasons. I wrote a blog post about it. It's out there. Yeah. But
that's smart.
Broke that down for those people, and it got a ton of engagement. So that was good. And I think
smart for so many reasons. It saves you the time of having to answer the question.
And it's helping those other people, I think.
And it's a better answer than you would be able to give them all. Because by the 5th person who asks you, you're like, oh my God, this question again. But you give them to a 10-minute video and you're like, there's everything with PowerPoint.
Yep. And before I wrote that blog post, or really any blog post, and if I back up, really even before I started this podcast, I was like thinking to myself, who's going to listen to me, right? What value can I bring to other people? We've talked about this in the mastermind. I've heard you speak about it. And it's this imposter syndrome. Like, why do you belong? Why does anything you say matter? And you're asking yourself those questions. And what would you say to that? People that get imposter syndrome and think, oh, I'm no good.
I was talking about this just the other day in a group, and imposter syndrome is so real. You mentioned the mastermind group, and you've heard this story, but I was thinking about starting a mastermind group for like 6 months, and I just kept talking myself out of it. Like, and I was in a mastermind that I was a part of, and I was like, man, this guy's really good, but his mastermind is good. But if he can charge this much for this, I can easily charge, whatever, way, way, way less, and still have a successful group and be able to create a community. And I was talking myself out of it. Like, this was like a back and forth with myself almost daily for probably 5 or 6 months, where it's like, oh man, yeah, I should do this. Oh, nah, who am I to teach that? Oh, no one's going to want to join.
And I think that's why it took me longer to eventually launch, because I had the same self-deprecating thoughts as well. How'd you overcome it?
Well, in that situation, a friend hit me up and was like, hey, you ever thought about starting a mastermind group? And I was like, yes, actually, I've been thinking about it, and we would be a great fit. Let's talk. And that was it. I mean, Stu and I were like, okay, let's do it. And it was like someone gave me permission. But interestingly enough, of the first 20 people we had in the group, probably, I mean, at least half, but maybe more than half of them were people that I, came from my market, you know what I mean? My audience. Yeah. And it was like, all of a sudden I was like, oh man, I totally could have done this. Why was I doubting myself? And I found that in almost every occasion, that's the case, right? And sometimes things aren't going to work, but usually when you're telling yourself that, it's not the case. So the first thing you need to do is you need to tell yourself to shut up, but you need to get around people who are doing what you've already done, right? So if you get around somebody who has a mastermind group, awesome. If you want to get good at real estate, get around people who've already bought some real estate. Like if they've done what you want to do, or they've been where you want to be, or they are where you want to go, and you can get around those people, even if you have to pay to get around those people, and you can ask for their advice, you're going to be fine, right? Like they're going to steer you in the right direction. I have yet to ever meet a successful person who does not want you to succeed, right? Like no millionaire is out there like, screw you, peasant, you shouldn't make 10 grand a month. No, they don't. They want to watch you succeed. So ask someone who's successful for advice or thoughts or whatever, and then actually listen to what they say and do what they tell you to do. That's one. The other thing is just realizing like you're in your head. Everybody is fearful of success. Like it's not comfortable to be successful. Everybody has some point where they're like making $10,000 scares them, or making $20,000 scares them, or making $500,000 a year scares them. And they limit themselves because of that fear. So unfortunately, that's a natural thing. So the best thing you can do is get around people, network with people who are where you want to be, but get into an accountability group with people who are going to call you out on your bluff, right? If you come up with an idea around somebody and they hold you accountable to it and beat you up if you don't do it, at least you have to try. So I like to set goals that pull me forward, right? And this is like maybe not necessarily 100% aligned with imposter syndrome, but I think it's very similar concept. And the example I always use is like running, right? When I was a young Marine or whatever, there were definitely nights where I did not want to go run 4 or 5 miles, but I knew that I needed to run 4 or 5 miles if I wanted to stay in shape or whatever. And I had a buddy who was a good runner. And so I would just be like, hey, Casey, you want to go run 4 or 5 miles? And, if he said no, I may still run it. I may not, but, whatever. But 9 times out of 10, he would say yes. And then it's like, well, crap. Now I have
to do it because then they're committed with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So find people around you that you can do things like that with. And you can say, hey, what do you think about doing this? And if they agree with it, like, well, all right, well, now I have to, and you won't regret it.
Yeah, that's huge. I forget who said the quote, but you become the average of the 5 people you're around most. And I'm sure you've heard that quote. And it's like, if you're surrounding yourself with, just from your last example, if you're surrounding yourself with people that are couch potatoes and don't run, what do you think you're going to end up doing? Sitting on the couch, not running. If you want to be successful in real estate and grow your portfolio, if you get around people who have larger portfolios and are actively doing deals, it's going to pull you up to their level. Like it's hard to be like the lowest performing person in your group of friends. Usually that group is, everybody's about the same status. So if you want to like up your status, go get in one of these masterminds. And they're not expensive. There's some expensive ones out there, but you could start one with guys that on Facebook that all want to do that all want to get into the same thing. Even if it's not real estate, if you want to, I don't know, fix a car in your garage, get with guys that want to fix cars in their garages. And the accountability piece of that is so huge. David, you'll like this. So in my group, in the Orange Squad, within the war room, we're starting to like talk about, hey, if you don't make it one week, you're going to donate $20 to charity. And we're just going to pull that up, and we're going to start putting this money. So like to give you some physical accountability, just to get everybody there, because we're all working full time and everything. And most of the time we show up, but that one person, we always give them crap. Hey, you putting $20 in? It's just that group accountability to pull everybody the same way.
I think that's huge. I was going to say that you mentioned the masterminds. I was going to say, make sure you guys put some skin in the game. I've done some free ones and they wash out. Make sure there's some skin in the game so that people show up. and they will absolutely change your life.
There is no better asset class for building wealth than real estate. And in most instances, people don't have the time or energy to invest in it on their own. So how do you build wealth with real estate when you lack the time and energy? Leave that to the GrowthView Properties. The GrowthView team finds, negotiates, and manages multifamily assets for private investors. Their mission is to help investors secure the ultimate asset, which is time, all the while impacting the greater good with their endowment fund that fuels the mission of charitable organizations. Find out more by going to thegrowthview.com. That's view with a VUE.com. Put your money to work so you don't have to at thegrowthview.com. Yeah, that's a good point. And with that, you mentioned talking about goals. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like with working a full-time job and having all this going on, you're running your real estate portfolio, driving the direction of the brand, and also, working full-time without access 12 hours a day. How do you find time to do all this in a day? Because I hear the excuse all the time. Oh, I don't have time. But you can make time if it means something to you.
Well, let me clarify. It's not necessarily 12 hours a day right now. The COVID has luckily slowed the work schedule down. So I actually have some life outside of the Marine
That's
Corps.
why all the videos are coming out. Okay.
Well, we did some teleworking for a little while. And so I was able to be at home. I was working, but I'm at home. So it's like, hey, in between an email, I could film a video or whatever. But I will say my first alarm goes off at 3:55 and I'm usually up till 9 or 10 probably at the earliest at this point, 9 that I go to bed, but 10, 11. And then I'm up at 4:30 if I snooze a little bit. So I got like an hour and a half, 2 hours before I go to work. For example, I am recording a podcast, not for my show, but other shows tomorrow at 5 a.m. and tomorrow at 6 a.m. and then leaving it for work at 7 a.m. And then I'll come home from work and I can't remember if I have a podcast tomorrow night, but I have something tomorrow night. Right. And then like Saturday, I have a group call. No, I'm recording a podcast at 5 a.m, then a group call at 6 a.m, then I got to run. And then I have a podcast at 2 p.m.
So just a ton of free time. You just throw darts at the calendar and say, okay, I'll make a video that day.
Yeah. So it's prioritizing, right? And the thing is like, you're never going to get caught up. You're never going to get everything done. So it's figuring out what your like 3 big goals are and doing one thing, like breaking it down to what's the most important thing for the week and then what's the most important thing for the day to accomplish that. So for example, let's not use that as an example because that might seem like a plug. So we'll use my Ironman, right? Like I'm training for a half Ironman. There's nothing pluggy about that because I don't sell anything fitness related. So, and so that takes like 10 to 14 hours a week, depending on the week. It's not easy. And so it's like, okay, well, if I'm going to accomplish this week's training, I need to sit down and block out every day. When am I going to do this at the beginning of the week? And then the night before I need to look at it and go, okay, am I going to do that? Am I going to run during lunch or am I going to run in the morning? But like put it on the schedule and then schedule your nitty gritty crap that doesn't matter around those things. And you need to get good at time blocking. You need to get good at batching. So time blocking is saying for 2 hours, I'm going to do this instead of just trying to work on stuff periodically. And then batching is I will sit down like tomorrow or Saturday, whenever I do have 2 or 3 hours, I have three videos that are like teleprompter videos that I'm going to record, and each one will take me 20 minutes. And then probably like 5 or 6 right now videos that are more like just bullet points. I probably won't do them all at one shot, but I'll do at least 4 or 5 in one shot. And it'll literally be like I set everything up and then I record a video, change shirt, record a video, change shirt, record a video, change shirt, and then do like bullet point, move the camera, bullet point, move, and do like all of it in like one setting while all the lighting's on, all the audio's on, everything's on, and then shut it down because like setting everything up only takes a minute or 2 at this point. But getting
it's
into
like a big transition.
Exactly. Every time you
set up,
change
it's like,
tasks,
I'll do it later.
Every time you change tasks, it's like 10, 15, 20 minutes wasted. And so, you just set it all up and do it. And then you just gotta understand, like, you want to be successful at something, you got to prioritize doing that. At least do one thing every day that'll move you a little closer. And those things will add up real quick.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, to back all the way up to waking up early, that's where I feel like I do my best work because nobody's up. My phone's not ringing. My wife's still asleep. The dog's not even up wanting to play yet. I mean, it's just me, and I can focus and just really get kind of tunnel vision on what I need to do for the day, which I love that. And then once I started time blocking, that like completely changed the amount of productivity I had, because before, like most people, I just had a list and I would just try to work down that list, but I had no time for it. I said, I'll do it today, if I have time. But once you prioritize, like you're saying, and saying from 6 to 7 p.m., I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do the thing on that list that's in line with my number one goal. Once that number one goal is down, I'll time block for tomorrow from 4:30 to 5:30 a.m. when I get up to knock out the next one. So time blocking is huge. I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I feel like so many people just work off lists. And if you're working off a list, I mean, I got all kinds of lists just right here. I need to put these in my system, on my time block system, on my calendar. And thankfully, with the new iPhone update, David, it's this great thing. Have you ever heard of it? He was crossing his eyes on the video. The new update, I can have my calendar on my home screen instead of my app, so it reminds me, hey, from this time you're doing this. And even at work, like I just going from checking emails to writing contracts, because I'm a contracting officer, to picking up my phone if somebody texts me. Like I put my phone away, I close my Outlook, and I just focus on the contract I'm writing, because that switching time, like you're talking about, the setup, man, that takes a lot out of when you're constantly switching through tasks. So batching is huge as well. So I'm glad you mentioned all that. So yeah,
I'm glad that iPhone invented the calendar. That's cool. I should probably look into that phone, just because it's the only one that has. Oh wait, no, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine they sent people to the moon without iPhones? I don't know how they did it. That's the most impressive thing about it. So let's talk a little bit about real estate now that we've talked all the brand and stuff. Walk us through your real estate journey a little bit.
Yeah, I am a hodgepodge. I'm the prime example of not focus. So
shiny object.
Partially shiny object, and partially, if I want to talk about something, I feel like I should have firsthand experience. So I wanted to learn about Airbnb, so I Airbnb bedrooms out of my house. I wanted to learn about flipping a house, so I partnered on a flip and then did my own flip, and then did a flip that went really bad. And then, I want to learn about wholesaling. Well, I'm doing some wholesaling a little bit right now, which is more just the deals that I got that I'm not going to contract. Primarily, I'm a buy and hold guy, right? Like, and it doesn't necessarily matter to me if that buy and hold is a 1 door, or at this point, the biggest is 146. And it really just depends on the deal itself and the people I'm partnered up with, right? Like the 146, for those listening, I'm going to be very upfront, is definitely not like I own 146 units. That's like, I own a really, really small percentage of a partnership that owns whatever. I'm on the GP, but not a huge, I don't run around screaming about units. So solo, I own 15 doors right now, under contract on 5 more with a partner, actually a guy from the war room, my roommate.
Nice.
And we got pretty sweet deal, actually. And then we're going to try to wholesale. We got a call tomorrow. We're trying to lock up a small portfolio of like 14 homes, I think it's 13 or 14 this guy owns. He's looking to retire. So anyway, I house hacked a duplex, and then I bought a 10-acre I did buy land, but that was more of a personal thing than a real estate thing. 10 unit. I bought a 10 unit, and then I bought I bought a big 40 unit building that I was going to do a lease option on, but I broke the lease option on it. It wasn't worth finishing. And then we have the single family. I bought another duplex, partnered on that 146 in the middle of there, did some bird dogging, some wholesaling, some flipping. But the main thing has been, small buy and hold properties. Yeah.
Awesome. I want to break this out a little bit, because I feel like mostly because there's a lot there, but I think your involvement in real estate has been similar to mine, though you're further along and have more units. But I'm kind of the same way. I did a little bit of everything, though I'm primarily a buy and hold investor, but I did a few wholesales and partnered on a flip in order to generate more cash to put into buy and hold. So for those who are maybe they come to the podcast because they're looking to get into multifamily, but maybe think the first step, let's buy a house first, because that's completely fine. That's what I did. I bought a house before getting into my next investment. So what do you think the benefits are to have a single family, to invest in single family, or do wholesales, or get into small multifamily? Like, can you just talk about the differences of the strategies?
Well, for one, I
High
think if you're
level.
if you're gonna buy a home, I think you should totally house hack. I think that's the single greatest first purchase you can make. Whether that's a large house that you rent bedrooms out of, like I'm doing right now, and I don't even own the house. I'm renting a place because I wasn't going to be here that long, and I wasn't sure I wanted to own a house here. So I was like, I'm only gonna be there a little bit. So I found a landlord who would let me rent bedrooms, and that's what I do. I live almost for free, but
Lease hacking.
yeah, something like that,
Subletting.
right? And so it's a 4-bed house. I got a master, an office, and 2 bedrooms that I rent out. And then, but house hacking is great. You learn how to be a landlord. You're cutting your living expenses dramatically, so you can save more money to invest in other stuff. And it's an investment property, and it will most likely cash flow when you move out. But it's also easy to justify doing it. You get over that analysis paralysis because buying a home is way easier psychologically for your first property than buying a rental. Right?
Yeah, it's
People
much
are
more
like,
digestible.
yeah, that's a good way to put it. I like that. Yeah. And so I absolutely recommend do that. Buy a duplex, triplex, fourplex, big house that has a place to park an RV, whatever you want to do. Right. And single family or buy and hold in general, the biggest advantages are just whenever you do anything buy and hold, it's the 4. It's the depreciation, appreciation. Your tenant pays down the principal on the loan, and then
the cash flow.
I was gonna say I mentioned 3 of them, and then I lost where I was. Yeah, cash flow.
I gotcha.
Essentially, your tenant is paying you, and you're getting a tax benefit for owning the place, and they're paying down the loan, and it might go up in value, and you're not paying for it, which is awesome. Wholesaling is good because you can build relationships with people who flip houses and whatnot, but it's quick money. It's just high taxed because it's active income and it's a business. You can't let off the gas with wholesaling and expect to continue making money unless you build a full team.
Yeah,
Flipping's kind of the same thing, right? Yeah, but even Bill is paying up. He's got a really solid team, and that's why he's able to do it. But he wouldn't be able to do it if he was doing it himself, right? He had to build the team.
Yeah, at that level, he's got the COO, the acquisitions guys, the dispositions guys. Wholesaling is definitely an active business unless you scale it to a business level.
Yeah, absolutely. And flipping's the same way, right?
Yep.
It's stressful and it is what it is. So most guys, even big wholesalers and house flippers, eventually move into buy and hold because that's where long-term the wealth is built. And then, multifamily versus smaller properties, it's all personal preference. I know guys who refuse to buy anything, but like the guy I had on my show last night will only buy single family, 2-bed, 1-bath, 3-bed, 2-bath tract homes in a few counties in one county in California. That's it. That's what he knows. That's what he loves. Incredibly successful doing that. There's also people who will only buy, 200 doors or more in an apartment complex, right? It really just depends on your goals, what you want to do, how much you want to be involved. And there's so many benefits to all of that. Multifamily has, economies of scale and you can take down a big deal because you've got other people involved and most people couldn't go buy a $200 million apartment complex, but they might be able to raise $60 million between 200 different investors to take down that same property and everybody makes a good return. It's really just kind of up to what you want and how involved you want to be. There's all good options. I don't know.
That's a really good overview just of the strategies in general. So if this is your first time digging into some of those, definitely rewind because David just broke apart those different strategies really well at a high level. But I agree 100% with house hacking. Start off, if you've never bought a property before and you want to get into real estate, how easy is it to say, okay, I'm going to buy a place to live with a 3.5% down loan, or if you're in the military, 0% down, and get into a house for nothing, and then you can rent out whether it's the other bedrooms or we have a detached apartment here that we rent out.
Nice.
We rent out with Airbnb. There's so many different strategies within it. So just getting the place and renting it out is so important because you take out your living expenses. You still have the tax benefits of whatever portion of that home you do rent out. So great strategy. And then the other ones are definitely more active, wholesaling and flipping, and then multifamily, which I love. And all these really go back to when I'm talking to somebody, I always say, figure out your goals first. Know where you want to go, like you were saying, David, because if you try to do them all, you're not going to be very good at any of them. But if you really decide on your niche, you dive in, like the guy with the single family houses in California, only 2-bed, 1-bath and 3-bed, 2-bath. He's an expert in that asset class.
Yes.
And if he sees a deal that's a 3-bed, 2-bath in that county in California, he's going to go get it because he knows it. So that's what I'm trying to do in multifamily now, is just become an expert in this niche, because that's where my goals are. I want to get the scale and the efficiencies in multifamily. That's just where I am personally. But if you want to go buy a bunch of single family homes, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just knowing your goals. So that's really good. So David, let's go into your progression into multifamily. So I know you've done a lot of different things and built up a lot of experience. So how'd you get into multifamily? Why'd you decide it, and what's your role there now?
Well, I guess technically, right, my duplex was kind of a multifamily house hack, but we're talking about the more fun stuff.
Yeah, commercial multifamily.
Yeah, I accidentally landed a 10 unit because I was looking for duplexes, and the guy was like, "Yeah, I have a duplex I could sell you, but I don't want to. Hey, I have this 10 unit though," and I felt super uncomfortable with that. It was way out of my comfort zone. It was less than a year and a half after I'd bought my first property, and the numbers worked. And there was some seller financing involved, like 10% seller finance. I only paid 5% out of pocket, 85% bank financing. It was just a win, right? Like I couldn't pass it. So I did. And then that's been probably my favorite property to date. And so I was like, oh, there's something to this. This is cool. And then my next adventure into multifamily was that 40 unit lease option that we talked about, which did not go so hot. I'm actually still in a lawsuit on that. Hopefully,
we were talking about this last October in San Diego, and this is the same lawsuit.
It was supposed to be closed in July, and then COVID. So hopefully, we're scheduled for the second week in November. Hopefully, it doesn't shift. But
yeah,
in essence, I bought this big thing with a partner on a lease option, 40 unit mixed use, and the seller just didn't uphold his end of the contract. So we broke the lease and said, hey, we want our down payment back. He said it's not refundable. We said, yeah, well, if you had upheld all of these bullet points in the contract, but you didn't, give us our money back. And, here we are. And actually, it sounds like he's done that 2 or 3 different times since then, maybe. So
different people. Yeah.
I know at least one person for sure. So it sounds kind of like a repeat.
Yeah, well, let's knock on wood. By November, you'll be in the clear a year plus.
Yeah, I've got more than a year's salary tied up in that thing, so I would love to get that back.
I could imagine.
Yeah, and then the third and most recent one is the 146 that I was a GP on, which I was brought in, did kind of some underwriting, investor relations, and some of the due diligence, and then I got to try my hand at raising some capital, which win some, lose some. It went fine. Learned a lot of things the hard way from SEC rules, right? Like I have this big platform and I couldn't advertise to any of them because I hadn't done a good job documenting that I had relationships with 90% of the people in my audience.
Yep.
I wasn't even allowed to send an email to, probably 98% of my list.
And that was because the PPM was already drafted?
Yeah. So I was I sent an email to all of the people who'd been a guest on my podcast. And that was basically the only people I was able to talk to. That because I was confident would, yeah. And one of them was one of the investors, so it worked out. And then I found some other investors, and so it was good. I learned a ton, and honestly, I don't know that I'll ever be like a full-time syndicator, right? Like I like being on the GP, I like being involved in that stuff. I don't know if I ever want to be the main guy, like the manager of. It was very cool. My personality is much more big picture and not SEC attorney details.
Yeah.
And so I would need a really solid partner to be involved at the top tier of that because it just does not fit my.
Yeah, that stuff can seem like a bear for sure. And you definitely want to, when you get to that point, if you start to syndicate, definitely talk to your real estate attorney and make sure you're doing things right. And if you're doing, it sounds like you did the 506B, which is where you have to have the pre-existing relationship and be able to document it. So you have to go about, building relationships with these investors, and you can't advertise. So definitely, and we've talked about that in the show before. You can go back and listen. I think on show 1 with Andrew Durazio, we talked about the differences of syndication, a little bit of legal stuff. So yeah, definitely things to consider there. But yeah, continue. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make that.
that's kind of where we're at now. I was floating around the idea of partnering with my good friend Alex on a deal here recently, and that may not happen. I don't know. And I'm still fishing around. Right now, I've been kind of starting to poise to take over my market when I move back. So I've been starting to like build out a local brand, build out a local website, and start sending out mailers to more the single, like the 1 to 25 unit stuff that I can take down on my own or wholesale. But I've still got my feelers out for big apartments in the area with several different brokers. And
nice. And this is in your out of state market in Illinois, right?
Missouri.
Missouri.
Yeah. I mean, the next close.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah.
It touches
cow farm area of the U.S.
Yeah, I'm from not far away in Indiana. It's I know where I'm from is just flat and boring. Missouri's got a little bit more. They at least got ducks in Missouri. I'm a big duck hunter, so I've duck hunted in Missouri a few times. But yeah, just small towns and apparently good deals on 10 units out there. So
yeah. Don't go to my area. No,
we'll even talk about where that is.
Awesome. Well, David, let's start to transition into the Fortune 5. I mustache you 5 questions I ask every guest. And if you guys aren't watching the video, David is a Marine, so of course he has an Austin mustache. So I'm going to mustache him some questions. All right. Number 1, what's the biggest thing that has contributed to your success?
Other people. Just being able to watch other people and ask other people and learn from other people. A lot of people have invested in me, and I think that probably somebody else pointed this out to me, and it was that the reason some of those people continue to invest in me is because when I ask them advice or when they give me advice, I do it or at least try it. And so I think just being willing to do that has resulted in cultivating some pretty cool relationships with some pretty cool people. And I attribute to most of what I've done to other people's great ideas or advice. So.
I love that answer. Modeling is something that can pay such big dividends. But if you're just trying to be a good person and provide value to people, I mean, good things happen. Like ABG, always be giving. Don't ABC always be selling, or AB, whatever it is, always be selling. Like if you're just always giving out value.
Always be closing is what you were going
Always
for.
be closing. That's the one.
Because closers get coffee.
Yep, closers get coffee. Yeah, that's one. I mean, just giving value to others will pay dividends. I mean, just to see you help somebody else is worth it. But yeah,
Agreed.
Love that answer. Next question of the Fortune 5. What has been your biggest mistake so far? We might have touched about it with the lawsuit, but I don't know. So let's find out. What's your biggest mistake so far that's turned into a learning lesson for you?
On both the lawsuit and the flip that I lost some money on, I think the boil down ultimate point of all that is trust but verify. So on both, there were things that I probably trusted too much and should have had better checks and balances involved. So on the big deal, I should have done a better job of documenting every single conversation through email. If we had a conversation and we had negotiated stuff, I should have immediately sent an email. Hey, we agreed on this. Respond to this, please, to document it. I trusted the guy. Honestly, I mean, a lot of what they did or said, it was pretty legit. It was just, there were a few things that could have been better handled for sure. And then same with the contractor, there were things I could have handled better on the verification process instead of just giving them so much trust. And I think a big solution to all of that on both is, just understand that you're in business and a good business person won't be offended by you putting those checks and balances in. So for example, on the big one where there was one example, if the roof wasn't fixed in 90 days, they were supposed to give me $100,000 so that I could fix the roof. And that didn't happen, at least not by 120 days when I broke the lease. So, it was a little bit far. Anyway, what I should have done is had them put the money for the roof and the other 2 or 3 items like that in escrow, right? And he was like, oh yeah, well, it's in the contract. It'll happen. It's a lot easier to make that happen if it's already escrowed.
Yeah. Document things up front is...
Yeah. So trust but verify.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Even when like partnerships I've done, we've just said, hey, there's nothing against you. It's not that I don't trust you, but just let's write it out up front. We have an operating agreement, whether it's in our mutual LLCs or just a joint venture agreement. Here it is in case anything bad ever happens. Like you just wake up one day and decide I'm like too ugly to do business with. which won't happen. But no, it's just, trust but verify and document things. That's really good. And I love this question too, because you really dig into, different investors and people's mindsets of what's held them back. So when you hear this, it's like, this person went through this, so I don't need to emulate that mistake to learn. I can just listen to it from them. So I think these are some of the most important questions of the podcast. And that was a great answer. So David, next question. What's your favorite real estate resource you'd recommend for someone just starting out, whether it's a book or a website or anything?
I am a huge fan of Bigger Pockets, and I love a lot of what they do. They're very genuine. They've got some great resources on there, but it's free to go use the forums, ask questions. They've got some solid books, and it's very well oriented towards beginners. There are a ton of great resources out there. I'm friends with a lot of the Bigger Pockets staff, and they're just very genuine people. And so I think that speaks volumes to me about them as a platform. So.
Yeah. And I think really the more you engage with them too, that authenticity and just how genuine they are radiates, right? And the value they give. So yeah, I think it's a great resource. I've gotten that a few times on the podcast so far. So definitely go check out their stuff. What do you like to do outside of real estate?
When I have time, anything outdoors. I'm kind of a car guy. I actually sold my race car 2 years ago to start.
Oh man!
I figured I can buy another one when I get to that point in life. I've definitely been a vehicle nut, motorcycle, cars, trucks, whatever. Hanging out outside, camping, hiking, whatever. And lately, endurance sport type stuff. I'm not by any means a stud. Not even as good as I was a few years ago, but.
Looking like a stud. I think the training started to pay off.
But I enjoy, I genuinely enjoy, being out on like a 6, 7, 10, 20, I don't know, whatever, like a long run or a 2-hour, 3-hour bike ride, and like kind of zoning out and just getting into the groove and kind of hitting flow state. And I do my best thinking. I listen to audiobooks. There's a piece to that, a zen, I guess.
That's got to be the Marine in you, because I always get to like an hour. I'm just like, all right, I'm bored, even if I'm listening to something. Yeah, that's the Marine in you for sure. Yeah, little known fact too about me is I used to have a motorcycle as well, so I love like motorcycles and cars and stuff like that. But I had to sell it to help pay for my wedding, so I kind of had the same mentality. I was like, I'll buy another one when I'm at that point.
Yeah. I had mine totaled. Someone parked on top of it, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll take the hint. And then I used the money from the insurance claim on that to buy the duplex.
Heck yes. I love that. That's a insurance success story right there. Awesome. All right, David, where can people find out more about you or connect with you?
I am all over the interwebs at either From Military to Millionaire or Military Millionaire, and from militarytomillionaire.com. Same on Instagram, Military Millionaire Facebook group, YouTube channel. You can find me all over the place there. So we've got some cool stuff. We got primarily and mainly absolutely free platform. Couple paid things, right? Like a couple small things, but like the mastermind group and stuff. But it's not. We try to provide way more value than cost, because I just don't like charging people money, which is definitely a limiting belief of mine. Yeah. So,
yeah.
But I'm all over the internet, and we'd love to chat. So hit me up.
That's awesome, man. Definitely check out From Military to Millionaire. First of all, if you're in the military, and if not, still there's great content out there that's not military centric. David puts out awesome videos, like 3 times a week now. Read the blog post. They're very good. And if you're in the military, definitely check out the War Room Mastermind. That's been a huge pivot point in my investing career, was just getting in with a group of like-minded investors who are all driven. They have similar backgrounds. I love that. If you're not in the military, there's other ones out there too. So look into that. But David, thank you so much. Definitely hit him up. And thanks for coming on the podcast. This was awesome. I think people are going to get a lot of value out of this for a lot of time to come. So thanks, man.
Dude, thanks for having me. This has been a good time.
Absolutely. Talk to you later.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you like the show, if you found value in it, please go to iTunes and leave a rating and review. And if you want to check out more on your multifamily journey, go to multifamilyjourney.com, where you can get free resources to start your journey and figure out your path. That's multifamilyjourney.com. But more importantly, go take action today towards your financial future. See you next time.